welcome to another ARC review. So this is an ARC review of This Thing Is Starving by Isobel Aislin. And I got this as an ARC review at near the end of last year. I want to say that I signed up for it for October. I didn't get round to it. I was determined to do it in January. And when I went to download the EPUB onto my Kindle, it was corrupted. So I tried it again, and then I waited a few days and I tried it again. And when it still looked all mish-mushy and you couldn't read a thing, it had been so long, I couldn't just go to the author and say, "Cooey, remember me? I signed up to be on your ARC team. Now I know the book is already out and I didn't actually read your ARC till now, but the file's corrupted. Can you send me another one?" You can't go around doing that. So I went and bought it on Amazon. I went and bought the ebook. And quite frankly, it serves me right for not doing it on time once I'd signed up for it. Now, this is a horror, and let's get into the blurb. It's just a house, right? Houses can't hurt. Houses can't bleed. But this house wants you to. When the Waite family moves into their new home, they don't bargain on being unwanted guests. But this house has a deep-rooted, blood-soaked history, and it's angry. This Thing Is Starving is an unflinchingly feminist love letter to the abused, bursting with feminine rage and told from the perspective of a haunted house. Now, as I said, this is a horror story told from the perspective of the house itself, not the people that are in it, or have ever been in it. It is the house's perspective that we get, and that is such a unique thing. I was all in for it. Now, I want to give you a couple of samples of how this is written. So I am going to read. You're going to have to bear with me because I will be looking on my screen, and I'm going to read from over there. So this is the first paragraph. The moment you open the cover, this is your first paragraph. The house is sleeping. It had been in this state, this half-aware lethargy, long enough to feel half a dozen winters mature and slick the walls with ice, jam the gutters with crystallized dead leaves. It prefers this state, where it can retreat into the furthest reaches, the cellar, the attic crawl spaces, and rest. It wants to drift in this era of semi-peace for eternity. Peace never lasts. This time it is interrupted by 3 shrill juvenile voices that scrape along the panelling, disrupting the fine layer of dust on every surface and bounce off the high arches of the ceiling. The house is waking up. That's your first paragraph, and the whole first chapter is wow. It's like a bomb going off in your imagination. It is just I was so invested. And I'll just read one more thing from the book. It's my favourite quote from the whole book. That woman thought she'd protected them all by moving here. Reality, though, is this. She delivered her children straight into hell's welcoming arms. Some people just aren't fit to be mothers. Perhaps the house can rectify that. And if that doesn't throw chills up your spine, I do not know what will. Now, like I said, the perspective of the house being the sentient entity and our perspective as readers is so unique. I don't know whether it's been done before. I've certainly never read a book with that perspective on, because, I mean, all houses have memories, and this one in particular, because of its gory past, things that have happened within its walls, uses its sentience and its power that it has against the abusive men that walk its floors, which we will come back to. Because this house, it's not a bad house, like the Amityville house, bad house. The Marston house from Salem's Lot, is a bad house. This is not a bad house, and it's not only capable of destruction or annihilation or murder, but it uses what it has to try and influence events that unfold within its walls to varying degrees of success, which when I was reading it, it reminded me so much of, I think it's a quote from The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. No live organism can continue for long to exist sanely under conditions of absolute reality. Even larks and katydids are supposed by some to dream. Hill House, not sane, stood by itself against its hills, holding darkness within. It had stood so for 80 years, and might stand for 80 more. Within, walls continued upright, bricks met neatly, floors were firm, and doors were sensibly shut. Silence lay steadily against the wood and stone of Hill House, and whatever walked there, walked alone. This house reminds me of that quote, because when you're reading, I know I did when I was reading this, when I put it down, you sort of look about you because you're in a house, and if you think to yourself, however many years you've been in this house, all the stuff that you've gone through, what would your house think of the person you are? I mean, if you think of it, the house is your primary protector. It is a basic human need to have 4 walls and a roof in every country across the world. You come home and you feel like this is your safe cave. This is your space. This is your protector against whatever trials, tribulations, whatever is occurring in the outside world. You can come home and all of that will be left outside the door. So your relationship with the house that you're in, or flat, or caravan, or whatever, is an extremely intimate one. Because especially like if you're in your childhood home, the house has seen you grow. It has protected you from being when way small, all the way up to adulthood, seeing your first heartbreak, seeing you cry, see you laugh, see your tears, everything that goes on within a house or 4 walls and a roof. And if that would give all those tumultuous feelings that you have, some people believe seep into your surroundings. And if you can't tell, I really like that horror aspect idea. Stephen King did touch on it with The Marston House in Salem's Lot, but not particularly. This goes into exquisite detail on how that would be. What is a house made of? It's made of stone, bricks, mortar, which has like soil and things in it. Or you could just make soil. It's full of rubble. Bricks, mortar, stone, concrete. The same things that go into making a grave. Now, although this book takes place sort of in the present day, you do get the house's flashbacks as it is waking up of extremely traumatic events that have happened to people who have lived in it in the past. And these traumatic events are incredibly relevant. Now, this is not a comfortable read by any means at all. So don't go into this thinking, oh, it's just a run-of-the-mill haunted house story, because it's not. Because this isn't only a bog-standard horror book. Now, the horror elements are disconcerting enough in it, but this really represents and really dives into the abuse suffered by women at the hands of men. And it goes deep. Now, the whole reason that the Waite family moves into this house is that they are fleeing from their mother's abusive partner and the father to 2 of the children, or 3 of the children. I think his father to 3 of the children. They are fleeing in the middle of the night, like states away from this guy. They've just flitted. This house was the cheapest because of its reputation. They've taken it and in they move. Now, one of the most uncomfortable sort of story, and I hate to call it a story arc, but is the eldest daughter's name is Veronica, and the house has taken a specific interest in her. And she goes through something which you as a reader, or I found to be the most uncomfortable thing in the entire book. Because Veronica gets this new jock boyfriend, and he is so manipulative, but he does it extremely subtly. So she just wants to fit in this new school. He takes full advantage of that. He tries to manipulate her into having sex with him, and when she ultimately says no, he says, well, you're just a dick tease. You're a cock tease, and you're frigid, and I can't believe that. What else did you think I would be here for? You're not worth much else. And it doesn't stop there, because the use of technology, especially in this era, especially in the era that we're in, is he then goes, and then we don't get in, because we are the point of view of the house, we see this happening. He nearly rapes her, and you are powerless to do anything about it. And you are reading it, and you are practically shouting through your you want to shout through the book, leave her alone. And he goes, and as a house, we don't know anymore until the next day Veronica opens up her phone and screams, because this guy has made an AI sex tape of her and spread it on the internet. And there is nothing she can do to stop that happening or quell the rumours, because it's AI. It looks like her, it's her face, and she, at that point in time, she has no one to talk to. And the house is watching this, it's feeling protective, and it can't do a thing about it. So all this rage is just building, and it builds throughout the book until there's bound to be an explosion at some point, because you feel so restricted while reading, because you are the perspective of this house. Houses could just get up and walk and kick somebody's ass. Can you imagine if they could? Jesus Christ. But it adds that layer of dimension over it, because you have an overview of everybody in the house. And it can feel with like tendrils what's going on sort of in the grounds. But once somebody goes beyond the boundary, that's it. And it can watch it, but events unfold without it being able to do a thing about it. It has to watch and wait, and we as a reader have to watch and wait, and it is incredibly frustrating. Because of course you can't stop these events, it's a book, but you feel like you should be able to stop these events. Now, another one of the uncomfortable things is it's quite an honest, it puts it under the spotlight. It has a lot of LGBTQ plus representation in this, and it is not a comfortable representation. It especially dives into, I think it time jumps backwards, so we're in the 60s or 70s when we go back, or it could be the 50s, I think the 60s, but it really dives into the abuse, trauma, stigma that people who were perceived to be abnormal, that being gay, bisexual, transgender even, the stuff that this person has to go through at the hands of the people around them is so uncomfortable to read and so anger-inducing, because they are horrifically treated by the men around them, and it really gets that inner rage going, and you can't do a thing about it, which is incredibly annoying. Now, this book from me got 4 stars. Now you can ask me why didn't it get 4? Why didn't it get 5? You seem to really have enjoyed this book. You're quite enthusiastic about it. That's because I haven't spoke about the ending. The ending is where my house of cards just, it fell down and it just couldn't get over the line for a 5-star. It was a comfortable 4. It wasn't a top end 4, but it was a comfortable 4, just because of what had gone on beforehand. If it was based solely on the ending, it probably would have got a 2 or a 3, because towards the end I felt that it lost its way and what it was, and leaned more into like the 90s horror movie endings, like traditional horror movie endings, where, you know, just it ends and it's just, it was so uniquely written from a unique perspective that I expected the ending to be something more, something different, to keep in with those unique aspects that it's been feeding me, and because it induced so much anger and rage in me on behalf of this house, to then lose that at the end and not get my revenge payoff was annoying. But maybe I was too angry when I was reading this. But Jesus Christ. I know this is an ARC review, but the book has been out since October. So one set of characters comes in near the end and I think they ruin it. And that is the Paranormal Society. They really didn't need to be there. Everything could have been resolved without them. It just switched the whole ending and made it some tropey horror thing that would have been good if the rest of the book had been meh, but the rest of the book was excellent, and this just, it lost me. It lost me completely. I was checking out when they showed up. I was like, really? Really? No. And everything was wrapped up in such a neat little bow that it was almost predictable regarding the house and those spirits that dwell in it, and how they were dealt with was too quick, too predictable, too fast, and with no resolution to their trauma that set this whole thing in motion anyway. And for all that the living people that live in this house and this family, for everything they go through and everything they do, there was one particular character. Oh, there's no therapy or there's no ramifications for what this little monster does to another person in this house. And you see it, the house sees it happening, and you see it happening, and you know, you can see it coming, and you just can't do anything. And then for that person not to face any ramifications, even when other people know, and nothing happens, and this victim still has to live with this person for the rest of their life, or for the rest of their child life, but they're not a child anymore because of what this person did to them. And I think that was the point, to make it realistic, because not every abuser, not every bad guy gets their comeuppance. They just go on living, they're able to have a life, they're able to have their own family, they're able to just mosey on and get on with things, while their victim has to deal with the trauma that they induced in them. For things that they did, it's anger inducing and it's annoying, and I see why people get so rage filled at this, because this was just a book. But it's very realistic with the emotions, with what goes in it, with how you feel when you're reading it. It's very realistic. So let me know what you think of this book based on my review down below. Is it something that you would want to dive into? Let me know. And remember to subscribe to my channel and keep reading, or scream into a pillow, which is what I probably need to do right now.